Good Okay, please take seat, water, be relaxed, comfortable. Thank you, sir.
So, Sally, tell us something about yourself. Something interesting, which you find very interesting about yourself.
Ma'am, I'm Walter Sylesh from Chennai, Tamil Nadu. I,
Is it really interesting? Something interesting.
ma'am, I'd like to think of myself as a very curious person where I blend both excellence in academics as well as athletics. So,
Sorry. Okay. So, you are a curious person. Okay. So, give us some instances from your life that we can substantiate it.
ma'am, I grew up in Chennai, a city,
Okay.
but I grew up mostly protected, but I was always interested in knowing more about the world. So I used to read a lot of books. And when I went to law school in Tiruchirappalli, which was which was second tier 2 city, I had more exposure about how people are actually living and how law can be a force for the good for them.
So that means you need more exposure. Is IFS your first choice? Yes. Oh, great. So tell us something about what is your opinion on the recent position which Supreme Court has taken in presidential reference with respect to the earlier decision of setting the timelines. How do you look at this particular reference? Is it right? Do you agree with the verdict? You know the two cases? Yes, sir. So in the first case, Supreme Court has prescribed certain timelines. But now Supreme Court has held that it cannot prescribe a timelines. So from the perspective of Indian Constitution, federalism is a basic structure. What will be your position on the decisions or on the advice that Supreme Court has given?
Well, as you rightly point out, federalism is part of the basic structure of the Constitution, but so is separation of powers. And in that light, the earlier decision of the Supreme Court was in response to a particular set of circumstances between the Tamil Nadu government and the Tamil Nadu government. But later, a 5-judge bench sat on it. More legal minds sat on
Do
it.
you know the gap between the two judgments? It's barely 3 months. Yes. So Supreme Court was wrong earlier.
Ma'am, Supreme Court, definitely the two judges had decided on the basis of those facts. In fact, reading the judgment also make sure it is a comprehensive judgment that dealt with how the role of the governor has been seen. It was not just a RE decision. It was well reasoned as well. But later on, when the president, honorable president, had sent in a reference to get an opinion on the Supreme Court on 14 points, Supreme Court answered 12 of them. In that it had mentioned that it agreed with the earlier reasoning, but it just short of imposing a particular time of 3 months. I think this is necessary because as constitutional functionaries, they have adhered to the constitution.
Tell me the key points of the first judgment. Tamil Nadu, Governor versus Government of Tamil Nadu. First judgment. What were the key highlights of that judgment?
Ma'am, the key highlights were that in that particular case, the governor was not giving a response to the bills for a very long time, a particularly long time. And the state had no option but to go and seek recourse on the highest court. And in response to that, the Supreme Court said under its a supreme power, so under Article 142, it on one-time basis, it was deciding on a particular basis.
Can Article 142, power to do complete justice, can also be utilized to address the inadequacies of the constitutional law?
142 definitely empowers the bench to do complete justice to a particular set of facts in the and circumstances in a particular
The constitutional law, power to do complete justice. Suppose there is some ordinary law, CRPC. Supreme Court finds there is inadequacy. They can come up. But can this be also be used in terms of constitutional provisions?
Ma'am, that is, I think, the sense of the debate, and legal minds are still debating on either side of it. Whereas the court in the two judgments decided so, where it could fill a gap in the constitutional provision. In particular, there was no timeline or no particular time duration in which the governor had to assent or respond to appeals.
Was it right on the part of union government to go for presidential reference?
Ma'am, the union government wanted to exhaust. There were two options available at the hands of the union government. It could have either filed a review petition, at the same judges could sit on it and reconsider the decision based on some new findings, or the finding of the president, the reference of the president sent on 14
From your point of view, which could have been the right course? Going for review petition or presidential reference?
Now, from my point of view, I think the presidential reference opens doors for more renewed legal debate on the issue, because it's something that not just
Is it bypassing the ordinary procedural aspects of the law?
Ma'am, I don't think it's bypass.
Okay, tell me, do you think this advisory jurisdiction is against the principle of separation of powers?
Ma'am, I think it's consonant with. I don't think it's against.
If Supreme Court has to give advice, then why do we have attorney general? Government can't take advice from attorney general.
An attorney general is appointed specifically by the government to advise it on its matters.
So this is what Supreme Court, like government taking advice, advisory jurisdiction. Yes. I think that is something, a very debatable provision of the Constitution. Is there any other country in the world where provision like this exists?
Ma'am, I'm not aware of any other country in my limited reading.
Okay. What is your take on the new education policy? And what are the major grievances from the ruling party, your district, on that?
Ma'am, the national education policy is a necessary step for reimagining and empowering.
Can you make three grievances the present leadership in Tamil Nadu has against it?
Ma'am, I think from the public statements issued and also the political campaigning done, the issue was that three-language policy has been a bone of contention. Although the NEP prescribed that three language can be two Indian languages and part foreign.
One is the language issue.
For other. Apart from that, there is also the issue of funding. And certain obligatory provisions have to be fulfilled by the state government to get the funding under Samagri Shiksha Abhiyan. So this is another bit. So fiscal federalism is also affected.
How do you define the dispute between central government and Tamil Nadu? Is it party-to-party dispute? Or there are certain flaws in our constitutional structure? Is it purely political?
Ma'am, I would stop short of saying it's purely political, because this issue has been raked across the eye, across political parties as well. So it comes from a sense of identity, sense of culture, but also I think this is a source of healthy debate where constituents in a federal system renegotiate and re-engage on particular issues. So now the examples, the Tamil Nadu is a good example of how asserting local entity integrates with national consciousness as well, because it's been a successful state in terms of a lot of integrators. Now this model can also be applied to other states that are up and coming in depth. So India continues to live up to its dream of being a mosaic of plural constituents. And
can I say something about the significance of Chennai-Vladivostok corridor?
Ma'am, the Chennai-Vladivostok corridor was one of the mentioned trade routes, even when the recent summit between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi. And it is significant because it explores an alternate route to the traditional Suez Canal and the other routes which have most.
What is the state of progress on that? Is something concrete happened?
Um,
Something actual transport or anything is started?
Ma'am, I'm not aware of any specific countries in naming of facts.
What was the significance of Mamallapuram in India, China? Like why that place was selected?
Because Mamallapuram, by some of the reliefs and the sculptures mentioned, that there has been historical trade between India and Indian traders, as in the Pallavas and the Chinese, and there were presence in the South China Sea as well. So the Malacca Strait, which is a strategic route, has also some significance.
So my last question, if you had been in place of Mr. S. Jaishankar, how would you have dealt with the challenges emerging in Bangladesh?
Ma'am, as the minister, the
In charge of foreign affairs.
as in charge of foreign affairs, I would acknowledge that it is one of the greater strategic challenges that India has faced since 1971. How I would engage? Well, I'm sure that far greater minds are already doing a lot and engaging.
I want to know what you would have done.
Ma'am, I would have definitely not placed my eggs in one basket, as the saying goes. I would have engaged with Bangladesh as a.
Right now, in the immediate context, not long term.
Okay.
How are you going to deal with? I give you the responsibility. Get things settled in India-Bangladesh relations. How will you proceed?
Ma'am, my approach would be engaging with the people of Bangladesh, because right now
How will you engage with the people?
By not engaging in retaliatory moves where.
How will you engage? You would call some meeting. What will you do? And whom will you call?
Ma'am, we are engaging with the interim government, but as well as the possible political players who are going to be participating in the elections.
Is the government doing this?
I think so, ma'am. In ways, it is doing it. We recently saw our Prime Minister tweeting.
Is it getting something?
Yes, ma'am.
In India's favor?
I think it's a work in progress, too early to comment concretely. But I know that the acting president of BNP had come and he did not usually put the usual at the end, India rhetoric that BNP is known for. And we can see that as a positive sign of India and Bangladesh are geographical entities rooted there in one case, and they need each other.
Some urgent steps for India's security vis-a-vis Bangladesh crisis on Bangladesh.
Urgent steps, I would protect my diplomatic personnel. I will make sure that violence does not percolate to the premises and rule of law is maintained. I will continue engaging with the government, the interim government, so that we can, there is contact and there is no animosity, and we can exchange intelligence to make sure the borders are safe.
Good. So you come from Tamil Nadu,
Yes, right?
so like Tamil Nadu, last few years it has been doing well economically as compared to other states and also on social indicators. So what do you think have been the main policies of the Tamil Nadu government which has resulted in this?
Sir, as you rightly point out, Tamil Nadu has, through successive governments and policies, has focused a lot on social capital development, human development indicators, skill development, and education. Some of the policies include what was once not considered as fiscally feasible in the name of freebies, actually tended to have built social capabilities in the students and the population, sir. Second, I think there was a lot focus on grassroots level, primary healthcare, as well as healthcare, higher level, like secondary and tertiary healthcare in major metropolitan cities. This has been the case even since my father birth in 1970s. And even now, Chennai is continues seen as a health capital of the world. Third, this skilled population opens up a lot of room for foreign investment, not just people investing from abroad. A lot of the skilled population from Tamil Nadu, they could travel abroad, they do very well. And then they bring finances, money, and resources to continue to develop the state and be an asset to the government of India.
Good. So your father has been in industry business.
He's self-employed, sir.
So what area?
So he's moving into real estate, sir.
Yeah. So tell me, let us talk about real estate. So we have seen, of late, the real estate prices rising rapidly all across the country in different metros particularly. So what do you think is the reason for the boom? Is it driven by the actual demand, or it's sort of a speculative kind of a investment that are being made?
Sir, I would say it's a mix of both, where there is actual demand. A lot of people are moving to the major tier one cities for employment opportunities and participating in the major companies, industries, and so forth. But at the same time, there's also a lot of NRIs, non-residential Indians, as well as people from abroad who have a lot of capital from their successful ventures abroad, and that they are trying to hedge and try to make a stable investment in some of the properties. So the consequences, we see a lot of aspirational Indians also with a lot of property, with property for in the way that they want it, as we see in Gurugram and Noida, which I recently got to see. But there is also a lot of property that is under the hands of small ventures or hedge funds, which tend to not satisfy the demands of a lot of people who don't have houses.
Good. So your mother's worked in the social welfare department. She retired, right?
Yes.
So recently there has been this controversy about, Manrega bill being replaced by what they call G Ramji bill. Okay. So tell me, what is your opinion? I mean, the new bill, new law, now it's a law now. Is it in right direction, or there are issues with that? Because there's a lot of opposition to it from the opposition parties here.
Yes, sir. As you rightly point out, even the Congress Working Committee today said MG and Rega would be its plinth for opposing the government policies. But that being said, every policy, every government has different priorities when it comes to power. Viksit Bharat, as such, is a priority for every Indian in up till 2047. And this rural and employment guarantee program, not just employment, also livelihood guarantee program that the government has brought about, is a step in the right direction. It actually has a lot of positives in its favor. There is one constitutional issue that is being debated at the moment, but largely, I think we have to see how it goes, and I think it's necessary.
So, but tell me, so you have just said that, no, it's about, but what are the 3 or 4 main differences vis-a-vis the earlier scheme?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I didn't mention the particulars. I went on the broad approach. The earlier scheme offered 100 days of employment. It was one of the flagship programs of the previous government. This current scheme offers 125 days of, and earlier scheme had a more flexibility with the state governments who are the implementing authorities. The new scheme retains that flexibility, but it also has some sort of uniformity and order, which is mandated from the sector. And the third major thing, which I think is of interest, is that earlier 100-day scheme did not have any time scale or a seasonal scale on which when the employment would be given. The new one offers the right time scale between farming season, so it can maximize the benefit of when people are not, seasonally unemployed.
What are the major objections people are raising?
Ma'am, I think one other objection which most states are raising is that the 60-40 financial ratio is a little different from what they had been used to. And second, central government normatively giving the prescribed how things should be done was also something that some states felt, some state governments feel that may be eroding their autonomy. And third, I think there's an issue on when can a central government or a government of the union government delegate fiscally something to the to the state government under Article 253, if I'm not wrong. There was an article this morning. So I think that is a constitutional issue, whether it can do it, whether this law is constitutional as per Article 250 Clause 3.
253.
253 Clause 3.
Is it related to international treaties?
No, ma'am.
I think it is related to, in case of international agreements, that federal principle does not apply. You're a student of law, that's why I asked.
I'm not able to write very much. I'm also in a little bit of a confusion. But I remember reading an article this morning. It says 253 clause 4 for this VPG Ranj bill in particular, where the union government can delegate some.
I believe there is no 253 clause 4.
Uh,
Anyway.
Okay, tell me like one more thing since you're a law student. So in 2016, this insolvency law was brought in. So tell me, so what are its main features? I mean, why it was brought in first place?
Sir, this law, 2016 Insolvency Law and Bankruptcy Code, IBC bill, code as we say, was brought in to augment the ease of doing business priority of the government, where the biggest problem was that we had a lot of non-performing assets. And then a lot of assets, workable assets and capital was stuck behind cumbersome, I would say, long procedural laws or delays or poor enforcement under the SARFACI Act. I think, yes, SARFACI. So IBC was trying to streamline this and unlock capital so firms can exit quickly and then the capital that they leave behind can be used for further businesses also. So this is what I understood.
No. So do you know roughly what is the process involved? Have you heard the term COC with term to control insolvency and bankruptcy act?
I'm not able to recall any.
Committee of creditors. What about IRP?
Insolvency resolution proceedings.
Resolution professional. Okay. So what is his role?
I think making using the words, then this person will temporarily take control of the assets which are under bankruptcy and then decide how to restructure and plan the assets so that it can the company involved and then the new companies involved.
Because you see, this is one of the major reform that has taken place. Okay, now since you have taken PSIR as an optional, so if I put a proposition that GST Council is a shining example of cooperative federalism, how would you react to that?
I would agree with you, sir. The Goods and GST Council has brought in the states and the center or a common platform to discuss and renegotiate how finance flows. And since GST is now a law that applies uniformly across India, and states have a lot more say what instead of the center dictating how the money would, states also have an equal if not more bargaining power. So I think there has to be give and takes for this arrangement to work. And in cyber, I say that cooperative federalism.
What about the structure of the GST? A little bit about that. You know that what is the voting percentage given to the states center?
Yes, sir. I mean, 1/3 remains with the center and 2/3 with the states. However,
and are the other states given equal weightage or equal voting power, or it's different?
So the states combined are given a 2/3 weightage.
So individual state doesn't have a vote.
They are part of that state, sir. So I'm not sure about.
Okay, so my last duty, you've been into athletics, right?
Yes, sir.
So also participate in triathlon.
Yes.
So you also have, heptathlon, decathlon. So what is all this, and which is a recognized international sport?
So triathlon is also a recognized international sport.
No, what like say Asian Games or Olympics? So which event takes place there?
So in all of these sports, the sports that you mentioned do take place.
So there is a separate gold medal for all the 3 events.
Yes, sir. Triathlon has a separate events.
And even heptathlon?
Heptathlon, I don't know, sir. I think it should have, but I'm not sure.
So coming to decathlon, can you name the 10 events which are there in decathlon?
Most of.
So after triathlon, you're into athletics, you should at least try to make some case up to from 10, at least 3, 4, 5.
Correct, sir. Sir, if I would like to make a distinction that triathlon does not only stick with athletics. It's a endurance sport that has running as one of its sports, but it starts with swimming and biking. So in comparison, from my understanding of what hecathlon and decathlon are, they're always track and field events. So I wanted to not comment on what I did.
Oh, madam.
Fine. So, Sylesh, entrepreneurship is one of your subjects in class 12th. Yeah. What is an entrepreneur doing, planning to enter government for?
Ma'am, entrepreneurship as a subject taught me to have a vision, taught me to take risks. And these are two things I've followed my journey until this point.
Okay, fair enough. And then you moved up to law.
Yes.
Why did you choose law
Ma'am,
as a graduation subject?
I've always wanted to pick a subject that helps me understand the world more. And closer to 10th, 11th, in my 11th and 12th grade, I realized that I had an aptitude for the humanities subjects, but I also wanted to take in a profession that would be noble and also be able to help people in their journey. And yes, as a consequence, I didn't choose law in my child, but it was an inevitable choice.
Okay. So India is now an ideas economy, correct? Post-COVID, there's been a massive upscale in all formats of digitization across all skill sets, across every aspect: governance, finance, education, social activities, entertainment, all of it. Have you heard of the Startup India Innovation Mission?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me any 2 points as an entrepreneur you would have come across all the resources that the government gives to its budding entrepreneurs? What are the 2 points that you can think of
Ma'am,
for Startup India?
I can think of incubation support, and I can also think of venture capital funding.
Can you give me the specific names of the 2 programs that support capital funding from the government of India?
No.
Okay. How much do you think, what is the number value that you can give to the startup fund which has been prescribed by the government of India to promote promote entrepreneurship in India? There is a specific number which has been given in particular.
Sorry.
Any idea? Okay. No problem. Have you heard of the Atal Innovation Mission?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Give me 2 salient points of that mission.
The Atal Innovation Mission ties up with what I mentioned about incubation support and ability.
How is it different from Startup India? There are 2 different programs with 2 different outcomes.
Ma'am, startup as such is a more broader term where a firm does not necessarily have to innovate. Someone has not had to reinvent the wheel or bring some new R&D to launch their firm. But an Atal Innovation Mission is something that encourages people, especially STEM graduates, to enter the world, innovate based on their expertise and find out. Give them the lab support, give them institutional support.
Sure. I'm sure you've heard of the IT Amendment Act. Yeah? That pertains, of course, to both law as well as entrepreneurship. Now, Section 66 was struck down. Section 66 in the IT Amendment Act was struck down by the Supreme Court. What was that section about?
But I think if you're talking about IT as information
Yeah,
technology,
IT Amendment Act 2000. So Section 66 was basically closed off by the Supreme Court as part of its judgment. But what was that specific clause? And why was it struck down by the Supreme Court?
Well, I remember that the Supreme Court in the Shreya Singhal case specifically rendered that provision 66 as unconstitutional. But I'm not able to recall the specificities of it at the moment.
Oh, Shreya Singh's case.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So part of India's ideas economy is IPR. And IPR is the bedrock of everything that happens across trade, intellectual property rights, content creation. But it also delineates with financial transactions as part of IPR. What do you think are the challenges that the IPR implementation has in India?
When IBR
Give me any 2 examples.
entails like very broad points, but I will come to patents, for example. And I mean, this is, as we speak, the speed in which patents are granted are moving faster than before. But I remember there was for the longest time that it was very hard for patents to get processed. It take years and years to process patents. The second thing I would say is geographical indications is something that we are trying to encourage to help promote our local products on the local stage. But on many in practice, we give the GI tag, but it has not really, zipped up to the benefits that probably the Western economies have benefited.
Why do this?
I can personally say this because when I'm in my second year of law school, I did a sociological research with law on certain products of GI tag in Tanjavur district in Tamil Nadu. There were 3 different tags on the Tanjavur doll, the Tanjavur paintings, and the Tanjavur silver plates. So these were brought in on paper by a lot of, there was all the provisions and everything. But when I actually did sociological research on the artisans and the people there, they were aware that some lawyer had come and given them the necessary, filed the paperwork for them and given them that. But they were not able to reap the benefits of the GI tag. So this was in 2018. But I definitely think that now with ODOP and the other export promotion schemes that the government of India is doing, GI tag is definitely a step in the right direction.
Okay, fair enough. Have you seen a recent clip of Vijay Mallya and Lalit Modi, which is a very big meme right now? Who are these 2 men?
Ma'am, these are 2 men who are wanted by the government of India for having committed financial crimes.
Okay. And what is Lalit Modi saying in this scheme?
Ma'am,
Why is it so famous or infamous rather?
Ma'am, I think both of them are trying to poke fun at the fact that despite years of being under the scanner of the Indian authorities and under the court cases, they are still free and they're able to celebrate without any legal, without being punished or facing the consequences for their action. And I think it's a...
Do you think that this clip deserves a government response?
When a clip garners public response and when publics are clamoring and they feel that the government is not doing it, the government definitely has to stand up and be present and say, hey, we are doing the necessary steps, like the spokesperson of the NE just pointed out.
Yeah, correct. I see in your person note that you like reading non-fiction and Ayn Rand is one of your favorite authors. What is her particular philosophy? What is it called?
Ma'am, Ayn Rand's philosophy is called objectivism.
And can you give me a couple of supporting examples?
Yes. So Ayn Rand was once asked to define a philosophy in 4 words. And she actually takes from the Aristotelian school of thought, followed by Locke and so on. And she puts her philosophy in 4 words. Metaphysics is the existence exists, but there is a universe outside of our perception as well. And then ethics is self-interest or rational egoism. And third is politics is capitalism or the free market, where people are afraid to try it with the fruits of their mind. And fourth is their epistemology is reason. I'm sorry, that should have come before.
And what is the Romantic Manifesto?
The Romantic Manifesto is her 5th aspect, which I have not explored as much. It was her work on art, how you judge art. And it takes from why she says romantic, because she has an admiration for the classics and how she likes to admire artwork that shows man as an idea, what man can aspire to be. In a way, though she's Platonic, though she's Aristotelian, this has a Platonic undertone. And I really like looking at Western art through that lens, and it has taught me a lot. But I'm not able to apply it to me.
Your favorite author is a passionate proponent of pure capitalism. How do you think that thought process that you have, both as a law student as well as an entrepreneurship student, do you think that this temperament and this application of this philosophy will work in a socialist federal structure like India? Because you will, as part of your government service, meet different types of people, and the nation's political the nation's political philosophy is more of service rather than capitalist driven. Do you think that there's a dichotomy in how you perceive your skills and what it brings to your role as a government servant?
Ma'am, I think you rightly point out the possibility of a dichotomy, but my reading of Grant has been critical, and it has also come from my own life, lived experience, and my journey through law school. And what I've understood is her position, she was a product of her times in the 1940s when she made certain very hard stances on unfettered capitalism. She was evoking both an admiration for an era of the golden age that she called, and also how certain excesses and certain inefficiencies in the government of the US at that time, and her own experiences under Soviet communism where her family's property was expropriated, all tempered her to make a stance that way. But I admire Rand's work primarily for giving me an entry point into philosophy, which I think is the basis for a lot of our subjects today, but also that she uses reason and logic to defend her points. And her ideas of her virtues of objectivity, honesty, integrity, these are all part of her work. They resonate and complement what I aspire to be in a civil servant in a constitutional democracy like.
One last question. Ayn Rand was firmly anti-religion and anti-faith. And you're a citizen of a nation that has a rainbow of faiths and a rainbow of communities. Still, do you think the paradox exists between how you would think on how Ayn Rand's principles would be part of your thought process? Do you think that it's a stumbling block in your understanding of how you will function as a government pivot point between people of different castes, people of different communities and religions?
As you rightly point out, Ayn Rand insists she was an atheist. However, I've grown up in a multicultural household where I've taken both Hindu faith as well as Christian faith. And I have that empathy and understanding within. That being said, Rand's insistence on reason and competence and all the virtues that she brings forward helps in secular governance.
How so? Give 2 examples.
2 examples. When there is a conflagration of multiple cultures and beliefs and faiths, the thing that one expects a government to be is a neutral arbiter, to be fair, and for that you have to have a code on reason. Even if passions are provoked, you need to, like Pericles or Pericles had a foresight and a vision for the constitution of his nation. You should rise above the passions and be, the living up to the virtues and the vision of our nation.
Thank you. One last few last questions because that seems to be very interesting. If you are interested in reading Western philosophy, so what makes it interesting? What do you really like about Western philosophy?
Ma'am, as reading Rand got me into Western philosophy in the first point. And that was also the reason why I picked political science as my subject, because it had some also about Western philosophy was a major point in which the subject was fixed. What fascinates me the most was the use of logic and also the institutional records, right from where we can trace from Aristotle and Plato, and then to the Enlightenment philosophers.
Have you ever ventured into Indian philosophy also?
Ma'am, I definitely want to get more into it. I've been reading secondary sources of it, but eventually, in the course of my
Do you think there is a probability that after reading Indian philosophy, your interest may change from Western to Indian?
Ma'am, as a student of political science and philosophy, my interest is always there in exploring all aspects of human knowledge. And if our rich cultural and civilizational legacy offer a lot, I will definitely let it, as Gandhiji says, stay firm in my beliefs and let the winds of ideas flow.
Okay. As a student of international law, who is regarded as father of international law?
Ma'am, it's Hugo Gracious.
What is
Hugo
this?
Gracious.
What is his contribution?
His contribution was the idea of external sovereignty, where international law acts as a force, where beyond the sovereign states, there is an external sovereignty where someone following the rule of law concepts beyond the traditional context.
So, do you think at present, rule of law has any significance in international affairs?
Ma'am, it's a complex state of affairs in the international world right now. We are moving to a multipolar world where multiple sovereign nations are asserting their influence on the world stage. And there is a great power game as
Let me try to say that multilateralism has collapsed in the era of multipolarity.
Ma'am, I would not go that far. I would say multilateralism is definitely here to stay. An era of multipolarity.
Here to stay on what basis?
Ma'am, the United Nations continues to have all the members of the world countries today. And multipolarity shows a structural power shift. But at the same time, if countries were to come,
Is there any link between rise of multipolarity and decline of multilateralism?
then there can be a line drawn in that way where if there is multipolarity, then there may be competing multilateral systems which may not be universal for extent.
Okay, last question. What are the strategic implications of Pakistan, Saudi Arabia collective this defense pact for India's look west policy?
Now, the defense pact between the both two nations makes our traditional calculus on who we need to engage more in West Asia a little different. Well, traditionally, for the last few years, since the new Crown Prince took over in South, we've tried to pivot. Our government has been trying to pivot to that, to Saudi and engage in good relations. But now we are also engaging with other West Asian powers. We are engaging with Iran. We're engaging with UAE, where we have a free trade agreement. Now, as a recently, our Prime Minister went to Jordan, and we are also engaging with Israel. So
we are leaving Saudi, we are super different.
we are not leaving anybody. No, but
Actually, your task is very interesting. Lot of questions. We would like to know many opinions, but fine. Yeah, time. It's all about 45 minutes. Like, hardly people have such a interesting.
So like
We can do.
so it's we have
I think we can do after you. If you go, we'll discuss it.
sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank
Please.
you.